Hey everyone, we're just getting started in a few minutes. I'm trying to enable the music while we just set up everything for the speakers, but for some reason Twitter is not working for music. I at least don't hear it. We'll see.
Today, Twitter has decided that they do not want music. So it's just the way it is right now.
For those of you who just joined, just give us 2 more minutes and then we'll get you right started. Just getting the last speakers added now. Twitter's being so weird today. Music doesn't work. I hear some of the hear people. So it's gonna be interesting to see how Twitter.
I'm sure it will behave. It will be fine. And if push comes to shove, I can always make some music.
Oh, I wish the music doesn't work today.
Yeah, some banger elevator music.
Do you ever feel like a plastic bag drifting through the wind, wanting to start again? Do you ever feel this a paper thin, like a house of cards caving in? Do you ever feel already buried? 6 feet on the screen, but no one seems to hear a thing. Do you know that there's still a chance for you? 'Cause there's a spark in you. You just gotta ignite the light.
I love it, Tanner. Coming in with the savior there. Pleasure to have you as always.
The
All right, I think we're ready to start now, Tanner. Can you hold off with Taylor Swift?
Hey, it was Katy Perry.
Oh, Katy Perry,
Pure
my bad.
chaotic
I'm not
energy.
the
I love
American
it.
music expert. Oh yeah, that's a mess up. I'll take that
That's a
on
huge
mine. That's
L.
on me. All right. Anyways,
Oh, now we know that you're not a
I
Swifty.
hope you all don't judge me too bad. I don't listen to Katy
Canceling.
Perry or Taylor Swift. For me, it's kind of potato. You can cancel me if you like. It's a controversial take. I know. We have a bunch of Taylor Swift and Katy Perry fans here. I'm sorry to you guys. Anyways, let's get into the space. We have a lot of amazing speakers lined up for today. So without further ado, I think let's go around and give some of the speakers a chance to introduce themselves. I'll just start really quickly with Good Game Hunters. Good Game Hunters is a Web3 gaming guild with the core philosophy that gaming is actually supposed to be fun. So what we do is we find, play, and collaborate with some of the best Web3 games out there. I'm happy to see some of them here on stage today also. But yeah, that's pretty much a quick summary of Good Game Hunters. I'll throw it over to the Kingdom to give an introduction.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this space. Welcome to all the speakers and all the listeners. I'm actually seeing some speakers that have been here in the past, and it's really, really cool to see that they do want to come back and partake in these discussions. Really love to see it. About the Kingdom, very quickly, we are basically a fantasy ecosystem featuring a game development studio, a gaming guild, as well as a Web3 community. We have a native gamified social application that has an avatar creator that pretty much lets you customize your NFT, all the traits, everything else. You can equip items to it and change its gear score as well, the rarity dynamically. These avatars will later be used in a virtual tabletop role-playing game that we're calling Tales of a Sword that is currently being developed on Unity. It is inspired by the greats like Dungeons and Dragons, as well as all the crazy dynamic stories that come with that. These avatars also will be used to compete in our land-based expansion called Warfronts, where players will battle for land and resources. And that's pretty much about the Kingdom real quick. As usual, and as is tradition, we do have a quest open for this space for those of you who are listening in and want some points before our season is over. And the passphrase for today is bounty. You just go ahead to our quest panel, you type in the word bounty, send it in, and we'll have some points ready for you. Thank you.
That's awesome, guys. Make sure to tune in that code if you want those awesome points. Let's head over to Jack for introduction to what you guys are doing.
Hey guys, this is Jack from Sahu Labs. So we are a consumer-centric layer 2 protocol on top of Oasis gaming chain. And today we actually we're launching a new game, I think in about an hour or so. So it'll be a parkour racing game. And yeah, so stay tuned. And I hope it will come out on time. Actually, it already delayed. Supposed to come out like 8 minutes ago. So, but anyway, exciting time.
Very exciting time. I know you guys have a lot of games coming up here soon. Without further ado, let's also hear it from Carney.
Hey, what's going on, Spaceman and everyone? I'm Carney. I'm the head of ecosystem over at Uprising Labs. We are a gaming L2, doing things a little more differently. Can't share too much more right now, but really excited to share this panel and talk some Web3 gaming bull run stuff. I mean, come on, we've been down bad for a minute. It's time, we reverse the tide, and yeah, amazing stuff. Let's hop into it.
Love the good vibes. Definitely in it for the bull run time. So it's going to be a fun time. Without further ado, let's also head over to Tanner from Altura.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Tanner, the COO co-founder of Altura. Essentially, in a nutshell, we are Web3 infrastructure for games, spanning across wallet solutions, minting platforms, marketplaces, etc. Just a quick cool thing we're doing at the moment, and we have a second space for it actually in an hour's time at 1:00. We're doing our grant fund. So $50,000 a month we're giving away to games that apply to our grant fund, and the community votes. So it's a 1-to-1 voting ratio with our token ALU. And the first voting opens up on July 1st. Over 51 games applied for our first month's grant fund. And if you want a chance to hear from them and how they're going to integrate Altura and provide value for our community, 8 more games are going to be talking today. 10 spoke yesterday, and we're really excited about it. So.
Yeah, I know you guys have a lot of stuff going on also. So let's head over to Merit Circle also.
All right. Hello. It's Marco here, one of the co-founders of Merit Circle. Excited to be back on the panel. There's quite some familiar faces here tonight, so that's always fun to see. For those of you that are not familiar with Merit Circle, I would say we're involved mainly on 4 sides, which is the investment side of gaming, It is also a studio site, so we have co-launched our own studio. We develop games ourselves. We're also heavily involved on the marketplace side, where we have Sphere, marketplace for NFTs, entirely focused on gaming. And I think a lot of you might know us better under the Beam brand, which is essentially infrastructure for gaming. So we're looking to extract a lot of the blockchain experiences away while still enhancing the gameplay experience. So yeah, very excited to be here and excited to talk gaming tonight.
Pleasure to have you here. We also have the legendary low life forms as well. Let's hear it from you guys.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is John. I head up the marketing at Right Trigger for Low Life Forums, and we're a team of ex AAA developers that have worked on a bunch of projects like Ratchet and Clank and Call of Duty and Halo, and also Adult Swim. We are building an upcoming RPG shooter that's kind of like a mix of sci-fi, fantasy, and organized crime. So uh, glad to be here and ready to get going on this discussion.
Love it. And we also have Sean joining us from Avalon.
Hey everyone, I'm CEO at Avalon here. We're building a multi-genre MMO with user-generated content and obviously blockchain Web3 enabled economy. So people can build their own worlds, their own experiences, and then over time, those worlds and experiences could look something like an Oasis. If you want to check us out, we're on X at Avalon, and you can find our Discord and our other socials from there. Happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. So without further ado, let's get into the topic. We have a lot on the agenda today. So for a bit of context, what does a real Web3 gaming bull run look like? For a bit of context on that, a lot of people here on crypto Twitter have been saying Web3 gaming is dead. The coins are down bad compared to what they used to be earlier this year, especially some of the altcoins in gaming. But with all of this FUD going around and people talking about the worst case scenario, let's try and see, okay, if it's not the worst case scenario, what's a good case scenario look like? So I'd love to hear. We have a lot of speakers here with a ton of experience in this. So that's a bit of context for the space we're gonna get into. So we have some legendary legends up on the stage here today. So make sure if you have any questions for them to put them down below. Retweet the space. So let's get started. So for you guys, I have a question. Like, what are your thoughts about the current market of Web3 gaming?
I'll jump in really quickly. As a creator on that side, currently it's pretty. We've gotten burned with a lot of these KOL rounds in the last few months. March, everyone was hyped up and excited about investing into this gaming bull run that we had, this like little mini bull run from like basically December to March in terms of like the NFT sales and gaming token allocations, and now everyone has this locked up liquidity, at least on retail side, and now no one's really interested in investing in anything. So I think what we need to see is to see some more of these token launches along with full releases. And then we'll continue to see that liquidity kind of be freed up and then be able to allocate it to other games and NFT collections.
Interesting.
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
so it seems like you think we got a little ahead of ourselves here, thinking the bull run was now, and then everyone deployed liquidity too fast. I definitely think that's a good point. I see a lot of them, people who have invested a lot in the last few months, and now that the market is down, they didn't expect how volatile it can be. But I guess from a builder's perspective, I know Tanner, Merit Circle, and a lot of the game builders here. How is it from your guys' perspective building right now in the current situation?
I think it's actually the best time to build, right? And I mean, if you separate out on the content side from the investment side, you can see that there's a lot of games coming out. Like from our side, so the game today is basically the third one within the past week or so, and then we have 4 more games coming out in the next 4 weeks. So from the content side, I think it's actually a great time. I mean, if you're a real gamer, then it's actually a really good time because so many projects been building for the past 3-4 years, right, since the last cycle. So from that side, it's good. Now, I think from the investment side, everyone kind of have to adjust the expectation a little bit because, there's some cases where it came out with very high FDV, right? Like, for example, Portal, and there's a few other cases as well. And that kind of set almost the wrong expectation. Like, for example, Pixelmon, a lot of people thought that they were going to come out at 1 billion FDV. Now they are 200 million FDV, which actually is not bad because technically, if the price is not too high, you get to build a community and they feel like they come in at with a bargain, right? So that once the market recover, then everyone kind of run together. So you have the community that stick around for much longer. So in some way, I don't think it's actually a bad thing. Now, if you're fundraising though, that's definitely harder. Or if you do like a public grant, for example, right, that you might struggle a little bit. But in general, I think it's actually going okay, and it's actually a good market for builders.
I think on the Altura side of things, it's been obviously when the market's going in an extremely positive manner, it's great from like a token perspective and growing from that point of view. But when you're trying to build a bunch of new things and release them, it can lead you to maybe wanting to rush or to get things out maybe before they're ready because you want to be able to capitalize on that market at that point in time. So the slight pullback for us, at least internally, has given us what feels like a needed breath of fresh air to be able to focus on getting everything done the way that we want to get it done and releasing everything that we plan on releasing, partnerships, announcements, and everything on a timeline that better aligns with our team internally. So that's been nice from that perspective. We're lucky in that we don't live or die by the token price internally, and we haven't taken any outside investment. So everything we do is based upon stuff that from the past and our ability to manage capital over the last 3 years. So right now, we feel like we have the time and the ability to work at our pace and not work at the pace of the market, which as a team that prides ourselves in our ability to build usable and not just flashy, but very useful infrastructure. This has been, I wouldn't say ideal because obviously you want the market to go up, but it's been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah. Obviously I'm a Web3 game dev builder, founder. So I'm very biased on what I'm about to say. So, I mean, firstly, I would definitely echo that sentiment. It's a good time to build. I mean, I've been building in the space for, 3+ years now. Building in games for much, much longer. And really, you just want to focus on building community and building product. And it's a great time for that. But when I look at like kind of the speculative aspect of it, I mean, some of it's justified, right? There's been a lot of games that have come out that have been, I think, fairly underwhelming, and I think we're starting to see some of that reflect in valuations. But as a whole, I would say that I think even in Web3, definitely in Web2, people really, I think, underestimate the potential of gaming and crypto, and I think we're kind of like seeing that being reflected right now pretty heavily. I mean, you look at like Cardano as an example, which has like 60,000 daily active users, but it's a top 10 coin, right? You look at Ethereum, which has 500,000 daily active users. But then like you go look at Roblox and like literally there are games with more people playing, like mods on Roblox with more people playing than people use Ethereum daily, right? And like that's crazy. And if we think about the value proposition for what cryptocurrency can do for games, and you look at games like Roblox, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like when somebody figures that out, I mean, even Mavia, right, which has more, I think, DAU than like Ethereum has, right? Like so I think that people are, I think, sort of underestimating the potential here, while simultaneously I think there's been a bit of a reality check where you can't just like put out crap and have high valuations, right? You have to actually put out great products. But I think when we start to see more great products come out with the kind of DAU we're seeing and well done games, this narrative is just going to flip on its head. So
I'm definitely excited for those games to come out. I think also touching about what happened versus last bull and going into that. Last bull run we had all of this hype, but not so many good games. I'm excited to see for this bull run how it will look like if we have more great games with more actual users. I think that's just so cool to see in the space. But I'm curious about you guys. Like, how do you think this bull run would be different than the last one? Do you think there's any differences beside that, or what's your thoughts on that?
I'll start weighing in on this one actually. I think it's a night and day difference. I mean, not just from an investor standpoint. I think also from a builder standpoint. We earlier had already shared the thoughts that this year it feels more matured. You have projects that are actually shipping games rather than just seeing as an investor some white paper ideas. Right now, you get to actually already very frequently test early builds. You get to see how the community reacted to some of the early builds as well. It's overall just much more mature. And I think besides the investment standpoint as well, just the games themselves, I feel like on the Web3 side, this year it's still too early to say, hey, we've nailed down what exactly, the blockchain elements should work in the game and how that should actually enhance the games. I feel like it's still a lot of experimenting, but that already too has evolved so much comparing this to, let's say, the times where it was just about Axie Infinity and Illuvium, right? I think next cycle, so to speak, or maybe next year, the year after, building games takes a long time. We're going to see even more of that maturity. And I think we're overall just learning a lot of lessons. I think the other thing that is different right now is that, and this is on the speculative side, so I'll say, nothing is investment advice, but we already talked about, the high fully diluted valuations and them already coming down quite a bit. I feel like we've seen a lot of speculative momentum, but that's not necessarily backed yet by the games actually launching and the player base being there and the businesses, because at the end of the day, they are businesses being tested to the point where, hey, is this actually a game that is going to be profitable and be here for the long run rather than being here for the short term speculation. So I think here too, retail seems to already have learned a little bit of a lesson recently. I'm very excited and interested to see how that's going to pan out further, but I'm very keen to see how Q3, Q4 are going to be, because I know there are a few games that I'm very excited about that are going to launch, that I feel are taking this, gaming industry experience into Web3 that we've been waiting for. So yeah, very excited to see the upcoming launches and how they will do.
I definitely think you made some good points there, because there's a huge difference between the tokenomics of the last bull run, which have obviously proven to be very unsustainable. And now we're at least trying to learn from that and testing out new methods to see what will get us the right combination of tokenomics and good gameplay for what will be the right way of doing things. We talked a bit about the high FTV and low float for some of these coins, which have, in what I hear from you guys, and also my opinion, has hurt some of the community if you get in on the secondary. So I think I remember I read an article about something like that, where it's like it's not always ideal, especially if a lot of your core community gets in on the secondary. And as much as you can have a game or community that loves your project, if everyone who buys is just gonna be down bad, nobody likes losing money. So launching with this huge FDV is sort of a new a thing in this bull market or early bull market that's become new. So why do you guys think that projects choose to launch with this high FDV and do it this way?
I think other than the obvious reason why people want to launch with an high FTV, strictly from a dollars and cents perspective, I think probably the biggest reason people want to launch with a high FTV. Also, if you can launch with a high FTV, it could garner you more eyeballs and attention, and that's always good, especially for a game who's looking to bring on users. Even if it's the initial speculative investor user or speculative investor, it's still going to bring eyes to your project in some manner. Also, it looks good on like a clickbait title, and all those things can attribute to user acquisition in some manner. So I'd say the main reason people wanted to launch, especially when the market is good, because the higher the FTV, I think hopefully the narrative changes a bit, but I think the initial narrative is like the higher the FTV, the better the game. It's like people in their heads like, oh, the higher FTV, the better the game. I should invest in this because that's gonna take me to new levels of riches that I've never seen in my life, or for whatever reason, people choose to make a speculative investment. And I think that mindset is kind of what triggers the positive feedback loop of wanting to do that versus coming in maybe more realistically to where you should be. Why do that if you don't have to? And it's going to bring you more attention at that point in time.
Yeah, I'll weigh in on Tenor a little bit, because I think you made some good points there as well. I think to add on to that, I think there's two other sides to it. I mean, first of all, it's not just about the launch; it's also about at what valuation did you do your private funding, right? I mean, what price did the early investors come in? And especially in the current markets, you're seeing a lot of CEOs that want to raise money now and perhaps launch a token next month. It's a very short time period between it. And because the markets are hot, obviously valuations are higher across the board. And so for those early investors, they are like, you know what? the bull market is right now. So when my tokens start unlocking, and let's say I have a vesting of 3 to 4 years, I don't want to be unlocking during a bear market where I would need to earn back my money essentially. So there's also quite some investors that might be pushing for higher valuation launches because it means that their initial unlock of, let's say, 5 or 10% might already make up for their initial investments, where further down the road, the rest doesn't really matter. And I think that aspect might be overlooked very often. And that's certainly not the case with all the projects, but I definitely think it's the case with quite some projects that we've seen launch recently. And the other thing too is, I mean, this is the point that Tanner made. Money equals attention, and especially in a bull market, I would say. I mean, looking at the past 2 months, how many projects have launched their token? Everybody came to the conclusion at the same time. The market is hot right now, so let's start unlocking our token right now, which essentially became quite a liquidity drain across the board as well, which is why some of the momentum might have been lost temporarily right now. I think those two in combination just made it for a little bit of a weird cocktail mix, I would say. That apparently isn't the best for everybody. But yeah, for the studios, it means that they've probably been able to raise easier. For the investors, it might mean that they got their initial rounds relatively safe, without having to risk, that additional 3 to 4 year wait time.
Interesting. I definitely think there's a lot of valid points there, especially when you consider that investors don't want to unlock their or have the tokens owned in the bear. So I think that's an interesting point. I guess if we get this new bull market coming here soon, as many of us hope and expect for, what do you think will it again just drive in all the speculators, or can it also help shine light on the games for actual gamers will now get this on their radar, or will it still just be speculators, do you think?
I think the valuation will become much more realistic going forward because, I mean, people learn from their lessons, right? Because if you jump into something with high FDV, of course, people, I mean, in crypto, people always expect like 10x, 100x, right? So when you jump into something that's very high, that, I mean, they just won't get there. I mean, like for example, the latest deal that came through in front of me is actually a pretty good game. It's only at 11 million FDB, for example, right? So now we start seeing more realistic one. I talked to another partner at the VC yesterday. Also, they basically, I mean, when they invest now, they expect something that will go up at least 5 to 7x, right? But then if they don't have enough conviction that the game will make it, then they don't even invest. And typically these days, anything above 20 is actually very hard to raise as well. So I think because of that, I think when games going like IDO and stuff, I think the FDB will be much lower. I think it's just good in general. And now you see another side, like CDFI announced today, right, that they're gonna do this new program where the project will launch at 1 million FDB, which is kind of insane. I'm still curious on how that's gonna work out as well. I'm not sure how that's supposed to work. I thought it was like some random intern actually type in the wrong letters. I thought it's like maybe it's supposed to be 10 million. Is it like 1 billion? But they're actually quite serious about this 1 million thing. So, and it's supposed to be like the first batch. I think they're working on AI projects, right? I was like, what kind of AI product can you build with 1 million FTV? So anyway, and then there's also another one with Crystal, which coming out from Kyber Network group, I think. So that one they also now starting shifting back to the initial liquidity offering. So I think the way it works is that it works similar to how you would raise on Uniswap, but in this case you can actually set up a lockup schedule as well. So it's similar to how Fuel Foundry went from doing LBP with no vesting schedule. Now they have vesting schedule. So there's more method of doing the fundraising, and I think again people now start to shift to, like you said, like high float and low FTV. So yeah, lots of experience going on. So I think by the time we get out of the other side of summer, there'll be a lot more activities and different experimentation.
Yeah, looking at some of the games that have released recency, I think we need to build more community alongside our token launches. And to be honest, like releasing a token at a lower valuation kind of excites me because it kind of gives you a chance to like build a community and build supporters like really early on and then grow that over time. Like I think like what Pirate Nation is doing right now is actually really cool. like the way that they're like really community focused and community first. And when I think about Avalon, like that is actually really important to me. So like even like releasing in a bearish market, like kind of excites me. I know it's kind of weird, but like kind of excites me because it like gives you an opportunity to like build along with your community. But thinking about like this holiday season, there's definitely like a perfect storm that's potentially happening, right? If you've been following like all the macroeconomic conditions, potentially really good or really bad, depending on how things play out. I think really good, but I don't think we're going to see like a Star Atlas again, right? With a massive FDV on a trailer, right? Like I don't think that happens again. I think retail's gotten a little bit smarter about that. But I do think that, you know, when we see some of these like real games come out that have built like real communities, I could see like a massive pump that like nobody, like I think even the most bullish people don't really expect. Like if we end up getting a game with like 3-4 million, you know, daily active users, I think that's really going to change things. I don't know if it's going to happen this year, but it could. Like it could happen, right? There could be one of those games that pulls that off. So it'll be interesting though.
Yeah, I think the game needs to be deep enough though, because now there's all these Telegram games, right? Like for example, the Hamster Combat. I think they're now at like 180 million users. So I think people will start evaluating as well. Like I mean, I think everyone should kind of follow the trend, right? So now it's the anyone building Telegram games. Like there's another one also that has now 34 million users, but they're actually struggling to raise at like 40 million FDB, for example. So I think again, like you said, retail start to become smart as well. When they see all these big numbers, they're like, okay, hold on a second. If everyone else struggling to get to 1 million, how do they get to that many, right? So yeah, it would be very interesting to see. There's definitely a lot more interesting things going on in this cycle compared to last cycle, and everyone's chasing all these different trends. And I think eventually, like Marco said as well, we have not quite figured out yet how to really get Web3 to really enhance the experience on top of all these Web2 games, right? So I think we're chasing, trying to figure out how we make that happen. Because once we have to figure out that formula, even Web2 gamer will be like, oh, that makes sense, and they will come in, right? Instead of like people in the West are Web2 gamer that keep saying that, hey, Web3 gaming is a scam, right? So I think there needs to be a shift in that mindset, and I think it's slowly changing.
I think there's a point to be made as well. If you look at gaming from a non-Web3 lens, you look at games that release on Steam and then have blown up, or in similar situations to that. A lot of these game studios, they're completely bootstrapped. They're have a very small budget, and they end up coming up with this great game that's maybe not the most like technically complex game. Like it's not like a God of War, but it's a game that people enjoy playing, and all of a sudden it absolutely blows up on Steam or whatever the platform is that it's on. And now you have millions upon millions of daily active users, but they only had a budget of like 50 to 100K to build that game initially. I think because of the nature of Web3, people might look at $1 million FTV and think like, oh, I mean, compared to what has happened over the past little bit, like obviously it's extremely low, but if you look at kind of how great games are built or how they've been built, it's not always with the biggest budget. Because I think with budget or with these massive FTVs comes really super, super high expectations. And with those expectations creates a lot of criticism. And when you have a lot of criticism over a game that, like, for example, you have, I don't know, a game that they might launch, like Pixel might launch an absolutely massive FTV. Now there's expectations on the game that comes out associated with this to be like the absolute best Web3 game that is equivalent to any Web2 game that's ever been created because of the amount of money that's pumped into that ecosystem. But like realistically, it's not going to be. But how, when you have the amount of money there, and then if that money comes with expectations, how are you supposed to believe that that's not going to be that when they probably have more money in that system than a lot of some of your favorite Web2 games have? So coming in at a lower FTV, maybe it brings back the EOS of like, okay, we have to actually work for our bread here. We don't just get to succeed off of an idea and a lot of great marketing. We actually have to build something that people want to play, and it might hopefully change up the narrative that I think we can all say hasn't exactly been working from like a quality perspective. And maybe that will create a more favorable market that will actually allow this industry that I think a lot of people here believe in to become a success and not just be a flash in the pan or something that could have been.
I think another pro of launching with the lower FTV is like you get to, when you point back and your trajectory, like you get to show how your community got in at this early stage, along with a lot, like the whole team and a lot of the guys. So I think, showing just like that you're launching with the community, and now everyone is up because you're doing well, and not just early VC investors. It's such a powerful thing as well. I think you guys touched upon earlier also, it was about like all it takes is one, right? So all it really takes is one Web3 game to really break through to mainstream, to show that it actually, Web3 gaming is actually a viable option. Like we have a lot of really cool games in the work. So right, like rising tide lifts all boats. So once we've shown that it's actually possible to make a fun game and have blockchain as the underlying ledger, it just becomes like a no-brainer, because now when these Web2 critics are saying, all Web3 games are scams, we can always, show, and like there's actually fun games out there. And I guess another point is just, Tanner, you mentioned the games on Steam. I think one of the big games that blew up recently was called Banana. And Banana is like such a simple clicker game. I'm not sure if you guys have looked at it yet, but it's the simplest. It's literally a picture of a banana, and then you click the banana. And you can't even upgrade anything to have like extra clicks or stuff like that. It's literally the dumbest stuff ever. But the only reason people like play it is because once you have the game open enough and you click the banana in a time interval, you get like a free item sent to your Steam wallet, and then some of these bananas, which are the items you get, can be rare and some of them are not. So you can kind of earn by this. So I think that the interesting thing here is it obviously just confirms that there is a sort of demand for play to earn games. So even Web2 people, like, this is obviously not using blockchain, but they are interested in finding a way to earning, even though it's through silly games like this, which I find pretty interesting to see that that's what drove so many people. But yeah, I guess turning into the next question here is, do you guys think the industry is missing something before we're ready for the next bull run?
I'm not sure if you cut out there, but I'll jump in if you haven't.
No, I didn't cut
Okay.
out. I was just curious, like, in your guys' perspective, are we missing something before we really take this to the next level in the bull run? Or do you see it as like, okay, we have all the good games in the works, like now it's just publishing them? Or are we still missing like this key element before we really take off?
I mean, the
I
big.
mean, I think.
Or go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I'll go. No, I think the thing we're missing is the one sort of major success, right? The one that draws the rest of the Web2 industry toward us. Um, like if Web3, if we were already integrated into Roblox and that became a viable model for someone to look at a token economy or an item economy, or how to keep and hold daily users, it would be easy for Microsoft or Nintendo or whoever to look at all that data and go, oh well, we're idiots for not participating in this world, right? And so I think, like, it's going to take somebody to win first. I think there's going to be a bit of an avalanche effect. You know, uh, I mean, like Roblox itself, it basically spawned Fortnite, right? Like, they had a popular game mode, and they were like, well, what do we do with these people now? And they basically made Roblox again with, better graphics and easier to use tools and such. So I think, like, generally, they're just waiting for all of us to hop out of the airlock and wait for somebody to survive, and then, really look at what we did.
Yeah, I this is kind of off topic a little bit, but I really, I kind of love being a builder right now in this space, because we're kind of like an underdog, right? Like sentiment is actually down, I think, pretty hard right now in the Web3 gaming sphere, especially, after Dr. Disrespect's thing and a lot of other things that happened in the space recently. But like, I kind of love that, because I really believe strongly, like, in the fundamentals of crypto. It's like why I'm in the space. It's not because token value chart is X or Y. It's because, like, I love decentralization. I love democratization. Like, those are things that I'm willing to fight for. And I think, like, when I think about like what it's going to take to have a bull run, it's just going to be someone like leaning into these principles in a way that actually adds a lot of value to the experience. And it could be literally anything, right? Like if someone just publishes the next Among Us, right, and they're like has a really good reason for Web3 and it goes viral, like that's it, boom, it's over, right? And it's gonna happen. I guess is it gonna be the cycle? I really do think it is. There's a lot of great games that are coming out later this year, but it might not be. It could be another year or two. But I do believe that it's probably inevitable, right? I don't want to be that guy, but I think it might be.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, real hits, real content sort of has to drive adoption, and I think all the market and speculation stuff will follow along a successful project.
I think we have going for us in that direction, at least when it comes to like getting that hit, is the liquidity in Web3 gaming. Like some of the stuff we talked about before, that some of these games are being developed with a budget of 50K or 100K. That we have a ton of Web3 games who've been able to actually raise like a good amount of money. So I would be surprised if not just one of these games that have 10x the funding of these smaller Web2 studios weren't able to break through. And also shout out to Merit Circle, because I know you guys with the DAO are actually helping fuel this ecosystem with funding for great games out there. I'm not sure if you want to touch upon what you've been doing there and up to there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always transparent, you know that. I think for us, I mean, this goes back to the sentiment I talked about earlier, right? We're now seeing, obviously, still a lot of studios are looking for funding. I think, in our opinion, a lot of the recent deals that we've seen are coming up with quite high valuations as well. And at some point, you got to think about, hey, to what point does this make sense, and to what point is this necessary? And so we've been actually quite hands off on the investment side for a little while. Obviously, when there's good deals, we still participate, and we're very eager to support studios where we can. Same with infrastructure projects. But yeah, we're very carefully selecting, and I think Avalon this year, for example, we're invested in them. We're invested in obviously quite some other studios, so we have a nice portfolio here. I think for us, what we're focused on right now is to figure out, hey, how can we help those studios, and obviously, on the investment side, cherry pick a little bit more. But yeah, eager to push it forward, and very eager once again to see quite some of those studios come up with game launches later down the road this year.
I love it. Definitely very excited to see the launch of many of those games. Avalon. I know we also have Forgotten Playland here as well. Like such a lot of cool games that you guys have backed. This is a question that might be relevant for you, but I think some of the other people here also maybe have some thoughts on this. But what are your thoughts on ecosystem tokens versus just tokens for a single game? Do you have any specific thoughts on something like that?
That's a good question. I mean, both have advantages, right? I think the ecosystem one, it depends on, hey, what is the studio looking to do? If we're talking about a studio, is it a studio that is developing multiple titles where this token is going to play, a role within those different games? That might have certain benefits for players. It might have obviously benefits for investors being allocated to multiple titles rather than just one. I think a single game token, though, it might offer more customization because the token could be really tailored to one specific game, where it might be hard to, do that for different titles because at the end of the day, you're still dealing with speculation, you're still dealing with volatility. So depending on what utility you want within the games, it might be easier to balance one economy versus multiple ones. I think very often in the industry, we're still talking about startups. We're still talking about relatively small teams that are working on those multiple titles, perhaps. So then, especially, I would say the argument of balancing that within different game economies, within the whole ecosystem, it might be quite a larger undertaking than if it were just one game, which already has proven to be quite an undertaking for a lot of the studios here. Otherwise, we would have the perfect blueprint right now. So I think both have their pros and cons. What these are is just very studio specific, so that's very hard to tell. But yeah, I'll let someone else weigh in as well.
Yeah, I agree with Marco. And a lot studio, I think, underestimate on how much work it takes to launch a token, right? So, like for example, there's one studio that I've been advising. They were thinking of launching 7 tokens for their 7 of their games, right? And I was like, I mean, have you even thought about how much money it will take and like how much time you have to spend? And because in a way you end up splitting the liquidity even among your own tokens, right? So in that case, I mean, sometimes having an ecosystem token is actually better because then there's more utilities. And I think one way to kind of get around it being customizable, I mean, you can have point system off chain or even on chain, right? And then that can be mapped into the ecosystem token as well. So I think, I mean, especially in this market, just imagine if you have to raise for 7 separate games, right? It's going to be much, much harder. So starting off with just one, and then eventually when there's use cases where having individual token makes sense, then I mean you can always go there as well. So, but yeah, it really depends on many different factors. But I mean, I can't imagine launching 7 token and manage listing for 7 tokens. That's just hell.
As the person who manages and manages the listings and everything for our token, I get that. I amplify that sentiment. I don't know how that you'd have to have a massive team in order to do that just on the token side, strictly from like managing listings, managing liquidity, managing with your market maker, and all of the things that get involved with that. Doing that for one token can be a full-time job on its own. Doing that for multiple tokens within the same project, that would drive me insane. Not really much to say, just that's asinine.
Interesting. Yeah, I definitely think that would be a lot of work to have 7 tokens, unless you found a way to, cross liquidity. So it could be maybe there's something you could do there. I don't know. But when we talk about these game tokens versus ecosystem tokens, what are some what are the right way to have a game token so it's done properly? You talked a bit about the customization of utility, but what's like some of the green flags or good ways to do this for a project, you think?
Sorry, what was the question? I missed the beginning.
So what's the right way of doing either? I guess you guys maybe a more ecosystem since it's not a specific game, but what's the right way of having like a single token for a protocol?
If no one's gonna weigh in, I'll start. I don't want to hijack the space too much, but yeah, happy to share some thoughts here. I mean, I just said if there was a perfect blueprint, then everybody would be doing it. I feel like it's still a lot of experimenting here across the board. And that's okay because, like we said, there's still a lot of games in development that we're still in early phases for the majority of them. And there's a lot of learning lessons. I think one interesting concept, in my opinion, is that end of the day, which I said before, you're dealing with a business and you want that business to be profitable and you want the ecosystem players to be happy. So I think what we've seen is a lot of incentives being given out to players. And I think if you're looking at tokenomics and if you're looking at incentives, obviously from a business model perspective, you want to figure out what does that number look like that is going out, and what does the monetization aspect look like with how much money is coming in. I think if a studio manages to either break even there or make money there by combining, or I would say comparing the monetization revenue to the flow that is going out, obviously you got a really sustainable and healthy ecosystem there. And I think tokens are a great marketing mechanism. I mean, it's a great way to get users in. I do think that a lot of those programs, they're overdone, and I think the social aspect of it might be overestimated at the moment, where you see those social airdrop campaigns where sure your social media might grow significantly, but it might not necessarily equal to actual conversion to players. And we have Mikkel here in the crowd as well. She's with the marketing team at Forgotten Playland. Right now, we're figuring out, very transparent, our marketing strategy as well. And we're looking at, hey, how can we best spend budget on a marketing way? Is that by, for example, giving out tokens for certain actions? Or could we better spend certain money on complete different things like Web2 targeted ads? I think the combination of Web3 enhancements, using token event incentives there for maybe more of the investor-oriented people, but also the players that are in Web3. But going heavier on the Web2 advertising side, I think that's something that I've not seen a lot of studios do to date, which has surprised me. But that might be, again, the state of the market where we are, where a lot of games are simply not in the state yet where they want to go after that marketing. So again, no blueprint, a lot of experimenting, but a lot of learning lessons with that.
I think to piggyback off of some of the things you said, I think right now a lot of Web3 marketing is kind of lazy. It's a lot of farmed engagement. It's a lot of falsified numbers. It's a really high daily active users from all those users that you farm so that they could get their little airdrop, but it's not a lot of real active people that actually care about what you're doing. The numbers on paper look good, but the actual activity related to those people beyond just a 1-click or a 2-click is probably not very high. The drop off rate is probably insane if I had that data in front of me. But I do think there are people that are doing a better job of marketing, and I think, for example, the ad that Coinbase did, the pizza ad that Coinbase did. I thought that was my marketing lead, like, came and brought me this ad. He's like, this was amazing. Like the way that they did this and the way that they structured this and went about this, like this was one of the coolest marketing campaigns I've seen from a Web3 organization or Web3 company since like the whole industry kind of was begun. It's just really well done, and I don't think a lot of people take that approach because that approach is quite expensive. Like it's not cheap to do things like that. It's not cheap to market. I think I forget what the stat is, and I have to like go back to like my days in business school. But like the stat at which the amount you spend on marketing versus the amount that you're statistically supposed to get back from that is insanely low. Like if you look at like a Super Bowl ad or like stuff like that, like the amount of people spend to have their voice out there, their image out there, or their company out there is usually multiples and multiples upon what they'll get from that marketing. And I think in Web3, we've come to the notion of like, if I just do social farming as much as possible and get as many of these people to follow me on Twitter and do this, I'm going to do well. But I think what we're learning now is like most of the people that follow you on Twitter don't care about your product. They don't care about what you do. They care about what they can get from you. It's a very, what are you going to give to me now economy at the moment versus like, how can I create value? And I think the more we move away from that and into a more traditional marketing sense, the more we're actually going to be able to have users that care.
Yeah, it's really well said. I mean, look, like we recently, like we're playing the game, right? We released a questing system recently. We had like 400,000, I think almost 500,000 signups, which is awesome. But if I'm being honest, like I don't count, like all those people are just farming points, right? They just want points and want to get rewards. It's all for themselves. Like, coming from Web 2, like we need like real community of people that actually care about the project, that are invested in it, that are talking about it not because they're getting rewards, because it's a community they want to be a part of. And like when we talk about when is the Web3 bull run going to happen, it's going to be when we see projects do that successfully, and that's only going to happen like if you have a great product at the center of it, and that's really our focus long term. So, yeah.
Yeah, really well said, Sean. I think a great exercise for builders to try out is go join in their favorite games, Discord or Reddit communities and kind of see how they interact there. Everyone's interacting with the devs and the team or other players in a very organic way because they don't have any, extraction method outside of, the fun they're having in the game, and they want to see the game succeed and, have more seasons. I have this experience on the finals. I join in the Discord and people are excited about the game. They're giving feedback about the weapons and, the maps, etc. And they're doing this because they're not trying to extract. Now, when I do see a lot of Discord communities in Web3, it's more the opposite. People are complaining about token price. People are going to get after the founders, the CEOs, the builders, etc. And it's a relatively unhealthy way to build out a gaming ecosystem. I think it's really important, and they're not to say traditional gamers aren't toxic, but I kind of see it a little more here. People being a little more direct since the founders are so in touch with the community. So it's important to set that precedent before you launch and kind of make sure that you are marketing to these outside communities and acquiring these people into your Discord without throwing all these Web3 elements at them, just kind of throwing it all over the place. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see more, diehard gamers than, farmers and extractors.
I just want to say, oh, sorry, I cut someone off. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, and I would say if the only time that you want to spend big is really when the game is ready, right? Because I mean, if you do spend a lot of money just for your alpha test and all these things, then you won't be able to retain them, right? It's either they get bored because there's not enough content, maybe you're too early and you start losing momentum. So I think from the spending like Web2 perspective, I think it's really when you are like closer to like beta launch or maybe in full launch, right? Because I mean, acquiring user is not as difficult as retaining users. We're testing a lot of things out right now. Like for example, right now we have two games on top of that radar, right? One's in the top, actually both in the top 10 now. And so far we've seen about 74% retention rate. But again, right now it's just play test, right? So this may not last. And so I would say that when the game's ready, you have to spend like Web2 games, like spend $2 to $5 per user, sometimes even more, right? But yeah, definitely don't rush into spending a lot of money. And we also run social fire campaign. I can give you the stats. I would say about 5 to 10% are quality wallets. So what I mean is that these are potential investors that actually have money to spend, right? But the rest are they basically just come in day out. Like when can we claim the token? Like and all these complaints. And so there's plus and minus. But definitely timing is everything. And if you build quality games and you can retention is definitely everything about retention. And recently I talked to a bunch of exchanges for some of the projects that come on our chain as well. So now like the benchmark is like even if you get 10,000 users and retention rate over about 50%, I mean you can get listed because most of the game can't even do that over 7 days without heavily incentivizing. And even when you're heavily incentivizing, then the benchmark goes up to about 70% plus. So I think everyone start catching on and really understand games industry better. And I hope exchanges also have better expectation as well, rather than just like, hey, you must have at least 100,000 users, otherwise we don't list you. So we'll see.
I have to head out because Altura has our spaces for our grant fund games talking about what they're going to do with the grant fund money. So I have to head out. I just want to say, Sean and Jack, it's really noble of both of you to like speak on the things in which the way you spoke about the actual retention rate and the actual type of users that are being a part of these social campaigns. I think far too many projects, games, whatever, try to act like those are real numbers and these are real users. And I think that's really hard or bad for the narrative as a whole. And I think being honest about that and realizing what that is and what those people are is only going to push us forward more, because if we're not realistic with ourselves, who's going to be realistic with us? And I think that's exactly what this industry needs. Thank you, everyone. If you want to hear about some games, talk about why they need grant fund and what they're building, come to the Altera Spaces. If not, talk to you later. See you next time. Bye.
All good, all good. I see also we're rounding up on the hour here, so before we round the space completely down, I'd love to just hear from the speakers here what you guys have coming up. I know you all are very busy and have a lot of cool stuff you're building, so let's just quickly do a round to hear what you guys are up to. Jack, do you want to start?
Yeah, so again, right now it's basically launch time for us. So we've been working quite a lot of projects for the past few years now, and we're looking to launch about 40 games still this year. So exciting time, but hopefully the market will be better as well. It's create better mood for everyone in general. But yeah, looking forward to come back again and chat with everyone and learn from everyone again.
I love it. Thank you so much also for tuning in, Jack. You're always a big brain in these chats. Let's hear it from Merit Circle.
Sure thing. Yeah, I already mentioned we're always busy. I think for us, I mean, I'm super excited to be helping a lot of studios that are launching throughout, Q3, Q4. We're eager to, have our community jump on top of it. We're eager to help share promote, I would say, those launches and ourselves. I mean, we keep building, especially on the Beam side, we keep building our tech. We're super excited to be working with a few studios that have pulled really large numbers in the past that are coming up with their launches later as well. So I think a lot of the tech right now that we're working on is very much catered to those studios, because that they will, enable us to raise the bar that will then assist other studios as well. I think other than that, I already mentioned Forgotten Playland one time. I'm personally quite involved there as well with assisting on the marketing preparations and whatnot. So I'm just super excited about a broader launch that is coming up there too. So staying busy in this building market, I would say.
I love it. Busy is good. Busy is doing stuff out there, building stuff. I love it. Also, let's hear it from Kani. I know you're also a very busy guy recently.
Yeah, absolutely. No, really enjoyed this conversation. I think there's a lot of insights that everyone can take from one another and apply it to their own companies. Yeah, once again, huge shout out to Jack and Sean being open and transparent about what they're doing, along with the other builders up here. And yeah, just really excited for the next couple of years of Web3 gaming. Relatively newer to the ecosystem, but I feel like I'm spoiled already with all the playable games out right now. I'm trying to try a new one every single day. So again, to the audience, if you guys enjoyed this conversation, make sure you shoot Mr. Spaceman a follow. These spaces are always really important to the health of the industry. So excited for more conversations in the future.
Thank you so much for the shout out. And also make sure to go follow these speakers. All of them have amazing stuff lined up here in the pipeline. Another one who have some cool stuff is Sean. Let's see what is going on over
Yeah.
at Avalon.
Well, firstly, thanks guys for having us. It was really fun. And I mean, and I appreciate the shout outs too. I mean, look, I mean, honestly, the only way we're really going to make Web3 a thing is if we stop selling BS, right? Like we got to be legit. We can't like do nonsense of pump token values. We can't do nonsense with botting to like build community. It has to be real. And like, I think, you know, it bothers me a little bit because like fundamentally I love the ethos of crypto. And you know, I think there's some unfortunately bad actors that sort of like taken the negatives of it too far. But I think in the long haul, like we can demonstrate the value. I think it's actually really important for society, to be honest. Like the decentralization, democratization, like these are like really core concepts in society we need to build into our technology, right? I mean, look at the top like 5 companies today. But anyway, getting off my soapbox, if you want to learn more about Avalon, go check out our X at Avalon. Or you can get on our questing as well if you want to do the point stuff we talked about. We've got some stuff launching later pretty soon in a couple months. You're going to want to be a part of that. I think it's going to be pretty exciting talking about building real community. That'll be part of that. And yeah, thanks again for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on also. Let's hear it from Lowlife Forms. Can you guys hear them? Or
No, I can't hear anything. Was just about to say.
Can't hear anything either.
Try and speak again, Lowlife Forms.
Oh no, Twitter.
Well,
Twitter got one.
Twitter's acting up.
Always like it. I love it. Also, Heaven's Compass had the same issue, but they couldn't hear anyone. That's why they dropped down. Twitter has been super weird today. Nevertheless, I guess the last speaker able to speak we have left is the Kingdom. So let's hear what you guys have coming up.
Yeah, really unfortunate we can't get Twitter to behave well, at least for a full hour this time. We were doing so well last time too. Oh well. Anyhow, really love to see the discussion here. I never tire of saying this. It's every single time I go to one of these spaces, I learn something new or a new perspective that I haven't heard in the past. And it's just so important, you know, to really gather all this knowledge. And like Kearney said, it's these kinds of spaces are the things that really make this whole crypto space go forward. When everybody's informed and they know what's going on, they do make a lot better decisions. And most importantly, when they talk about it to other people, they can speak it in a much more informed mind, right? And there's also the whole transparency here. So I love to see it. Really, really huge thank you to all the speakers who really participated in this space, and to make sure to drop them a follow if you haven't yet. As for the Kingdom, we are very much on track right now with the game design and the game development. We have actually recently released a full-fledged white paper talking about all the mechanics we have in mind. So do feel free to check it out. The link is in our bio. Our Neo Tokyo Chess, our cross-IP Neo Tokyo Chess full of avatar gear are available. They were made available very recently, and you can start gearing up your avatars and starting to get ready for all the cool stuff that we have in store. We also have other cross-IP partnerships coming up with huge brands. Still no release date to be announced yet, but brands like Shrapnel and Pixelmon and Chronoforge and a few others that we have been in talks with, which is really, really exciting. Our Generation 1 avatars are also available if for minting. If you want to customize your own NFT and have your character and make it pretty, that's something you can do. And lastly, it's time for another passphrase for today's quest for this space. So if you want some extra quest points before the season ends, just go ahead into our applications. You open the quest tab, and you insert the passphrase bounty. That's the passphrase you should send. It's bounty. There you go. Go get your points. Good stuff. Again, thank you so much to all the speakers and as well as all of the listeners. And until next time, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Have a great day. Weekend soon, so have a great weekend also. Pleasure to have you all on.